to Deep Sleep Stories. If these stories have helped you through restless nights, please leave a review. Reviews are what help this podcast grow, reach more listeners, and stay alive. Without them, even something meaningful can slowly disappear. So if this show has brought you comfort, that small act truly helps keep it going. Now, settle in, and let's begin. Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, a gentle place where your day can soften and melt away, and where your breath can become slow and easy again. Tonight, you'll drift into a quiet pine forest and settle beside the steady comfort of a campfire glow, letting its warmth guide you toward deep rest. Take a moment to get comfortable in whatever way feels kindest to your body. Let your shoulders loosen as if they've been holding a heavy coat that can finally slip to the floor. Allow your jaw to unclench, your tongue to rest, your forehead to smooth. And as you breathe in, imagine cool, clean air filling you like a calm tide. As you breathe out, let tension leave with it, as if your worries are little leaves carried downstream. Notice the space around you, even if your eyes are closed. The hush of the room, the quiet that gathers when you stop chasing the day. If any thoughts arrive, you don't need to push them away. Just let them pass like clouds sliding across a wide night sky, leaving more and more room for stillness. With each breath, you are allowed to sink deeper. With each exhale, you are allowed to let go. And somewhere far from schedules and screens, in a world of soft shadows and evergreen scent, a forest waits patiently, ready to share its peace. There was a place where pine trees stood close together, not crowded, but companionable, as if they were keeping watch over one another through long seasons. Their trunks were straight and calm, their bark textured like old, steady hands. In that forest, the air always seemed newly washed, even at dusk. Resin and needles and cool earth braided together into a scent that made the lungs feel lighter. On an evening when the sun had already lowered itself behind distant ridge lines, a traveler walked along a narrow path that was more suggestion than road. He did not hurry because there was no need. His name was Rowan, though the forest did not require names, and the wind did not ask for introductions. He carried a small pack and a quiet heart, as if he had been learning day by day how to set down what he could not control. The path led him beneath boughs that stitched the sky into soft, uneven pieces. Here and there, needles drifted down in lazy spirals, not falling so much as floating, as if they were remembering how to be part of the air. When Rowan stepped, the ground gave a gentle answer, cushioned with fallen needles and moss. Even the sound of his footsteps seemed to be accepted, then absorbed until it became part of the forest's hush. He paused once, resting a hand against a pine trunk. The bark was cool, ridged, solid. It felt like touching time itself, like leaning into something older than any worry he'd ever carried. Above him, the branches swayed slightly, a slow motion that matched the rhythm he wanted in his own chest. A breeze moved through the needles, making a sound that was neither voice nor silence, but something in between. A soft, constant whisper that asked nothing of him. Rowan continued, and the light around him changed. Dusk had a way of thinning edges, turning sharp corners into gentle curves. Colors softened, greens deepened. Shadows stretched like cats settling into warm places. The sky overhead shifted toward indigo, and the first small stars began to peek through, timid at first, then steadier. Not far ahead, a faint glow pulsed between the trees. It wasn't harsh or glaring. It was a slow, ember brightness, a warm breath of light. It warmed the air before it reached the eyes, as if the forest itself was exhaling comfort. Rowan found himself walking toward it without thinking, guided by the simplest instinct: warmth, safety, rest. As he drew closer, the glow became more defined, and the scent of wood smoke joined the pine. The smoke was gentle, sweet, tinged with the memory of sap and old branches. It curled through the air in graceful ribbons, drifting up and away, never clinging, never stinging. It felt like a story, told in a language the body could understand. The path widened, opening into a small clearing. In the center, a campfire crackled softly within a ring of stones. The flames were modest, not reaching too high, not demanding attention, just offering it. They moved with a calm purpose, licking at logs that were stacked neatly, their ends glowing like sleepy eyes. Around the campfire, the forest formed a protective circle. Pines stood like quiet guardians, their lower branches creating a sheltered space as if the clearing were a room with a living ceiling. The ground here was soft, layered with needles and a few flat rocks that looked like they'd been set down intentionally. A fallen log rested nearby, smoothed by time, inviting someone to sit. Rowan stopped at the edge of the clearing and listened. The fire made small sounds, tiny snaps and sighs. The breeze spoke through the treetops. Somewhere, a night bird offered a single call, then settled back into quiet. There was no sign of another traveler, no visible tent or pot or lantern, and yet the campfire was steady, tended, patient. It was as if the forest had made it, as if the pines themselves had decided to offer a hearth to anyone who needed one. Rowan stepped closer, feeling the warmth touch his face, his hands, the front of his chest. It was the kind of warmth that didn't rush at you, but met you halfway. He lowered his pack beside the fallen log and sat, letting the simple act of sitting become a kind of surrender. His shoulders dropped. His breath eased. The flames moved in slow dances, and in them he could see shapes that were almost familiar. Not pictures exactly, but impressions. A flicker that reminded him of sunrise on a kitchen floor. A glow that felt like an old blanket. A soft orange pulse that made the space around him seem kinder, gentler, more forgiving. Above the fire, smoke climbed and faded into the night, carrying the scent of burning pine. It rose into the branches, where needles caught small bits of warmth and held them briefly like tiny lanterns. Rowan extended his hands toward the fire, The skin of his palms warmed. The cold, which he had hardly noticed until now, unknotted itself and drifted away. He watched the logs shift slightly as they settled, the embers brightening, then dimming, then brightening again. He didn't know how long he sat there before he noticed the small arrangement of things near the stones. A smooth tin cup, clean and empty, placed as if it had been waiting. Beside it, a small bundle of dried herbs tied with twine. And there, a few steps away, a flat rock that held a pinch of salt and a scattering of pine needles laid in a quiet pattern. The items did not feel like someone's forgotten gear. They felt like an offering, a suggestion, an invitation to be cared for in small, simple ways. Rowan reached for the tin cup. It was cool, then quickly warmed in his hands. He found a nearby stream. By listening, the forest made it easy, guiding him with the soft murmur of water slipping over stones. He walked there slowly, as if the night itself asked him not to disturb it. The stream was narrow and clear. It reflected the dark sky in fragments, catching starlight and returning it in trembling lines. Rowan knelt and filled the cup. The water was cold, crisp, alive. When he lifted the cup, a few drops slid down the metal and onto his fingers, making them tingle. He carried the water back to the clearing. The campfire seemed brighter now, not because it had grown, but because his eyes had settled. He placed the cup near the stones, close enough to warm, far enough to remain safe. He added a small pinch from the bundle of herbs, and the water took on a faint scent, something soothing and earthy. As he waited, he studied the ring of pines that surrounded the clearing. In the firelight, the trunks looked like pillars holding up the sky. Their bark caught the glow, and the shadows between ridges became deeper, richer. Higher up, the branches were silhouetted, a lacework of needles against starlight. It was then that Rowan noticed something else. The forest seemed to be listening with him, not in a way that demanded belief or explanation, but in the simplest way that nature sometimes feels alive. The pines stood with a presence that was more than wood and needles. Their stillness had weight. Their patience felt intentional. The breeze moved through them like a slow breath, and when it passed, the clearing seemed to become even quieter, as if everything had agreed to settle. Rowan watched the fire, and he began to feel the day loosen its grip. Thoughts tried to rise, as they often did when the world became quiet enough to hear them. But they rose slowly, and the warmth softened them. They became less urgent. They began to drift apart like sparks lifting into the night. When he lifted the cup to his lips, the water was gently warm, the herbs offering a mild flavor that reminded him of fields and clean air and simple medicines. He sipped slowly, feeling warmth travel down his throat and into his chest. His breathing became deeper. His eyes blinked more slowly, like a sleepy animal's. He set the cup down and leaned back slightly on the fallen log. Above him, the stars had multiplied. The sky was clear, the kind of clear that made distance feel infinite. He found a familiar shape among the stars, then lost it, then decided it didn't matter. was enough that they were there, steady and silent, shining without needing anything in return. A gentle sound came from the edge of the clearing, a soft step among needles. Rowan turned his head, more curious than startled, and saw a small figure moving between the trees. At first, it looked like an animal, perhaps a fox, its coat catching the firelight in a russet gleam. But as it drew nearer, its movement was slower, more deliberate, and the shape resolved into something that felt like a dream, choosing a form. It was a creature of the forest, neither entirely animal nor entirely something else. Its eyes were bright and calm, reflecting the campfire like small amber pools. Its fur, if it was fur, seemed to hold hints of pine needle green and smoke gray in the shadows, as if it had borrowed colors from the forest itself. It approached the fire without fear, padding lightly to a comfortable distance, then sitting as neatly as if it had done this 1,000 times. The creature regarded Rowan for a long moment, and Rowan felt no need to speak. Something about the clearing suggested that words were optional here. The creature's tail curled around its paws. It looked into the flames, then up into the trees, then back at Rowan, as if to confirm that he had arrived where he needed to be. Rowan exhaled slowly, and with that breath, a quiet understanding settled over him. This place was a resting place, a pause, a hearth in the wide forest. It belonged to no one and yet welcomed anyone. The campfire was its heart, and the pines were its walls. The creature rose again and moved to the flat rock with the salt and pine needles. With a careful nose, it nudged the pattern slightly, then pressed its paw into the needles, leaving a small imprint. It returned to the fire and sat again, as if that small act had completed something. Rowan found himself smiling faintly, the way people smile when they see a small kindness. The night grew deeper, but not colder. The fire held its warmth, and the surrounding pines held the wind at a gentle distance. Rowan's eyelids grew heavy, then lifted again as he watched the hypnotic motion of flames. The embers pulsed like a slow heartbeat. In the firelight, the clearing seemed to shift into an even softer world. The edges of rocks rounded. The needles on the ground became a woven blanket. The smoke became a ribbon that tied the earth to the stars. Rowan listened to the sounds around him, letting them layer together. The crackle of burning wood, the distant stream, the whisper of high branches. Each sound was steady, predictable, safe. Each one told him that the world was continuing, smoothly, without requiring him to manage it. He stood and began to prepare a small bed near the fire, using his pack and a folded blanket he carried. He laid it on the soft ground where needles were thickest. He placed a flat stone near the fire to warm, not too close, just enough to hold a gentle heat. Then he sat again, hands open toward the glow, and watched the creature do the same, as if they were companions sharing the same quiet ritual. The fire's light painted the lower trunks of the pines in warm amber. Shadows climbed and slid with every movement of flame. Above, the branches remained dark and steady, as if the night itself were a protective canopy. Rowan began to notice how the pines carried sound. When the breeze moved, it did not roar. It whispered. It combed through needles with delicate fingers. And beneath that whisper, there was a sense of deep, old calm. Like the forest was humming a lullaby too low for the mind to grasp, but perfect for the body to feel. The creature turned its head slightly, listening. Rowan followed its gaze and noticed a change in the wind. It was softer now, more fragrant. The scent of pine deepened, as if the trees had leaned closer. In that scent, Rowan remembered something. Not a specific memory, but a feeling. The feeling of being safe under a roof while rain fell outside, the feeling of warmth after cold, the feeling of being small in a world that, for once, was kind. He leaned closer to the fire and watched a log shift. A small shower of sparks rose and drifted upward. They floated like tiny fireflies, bright for a moment, then fading into the dark. As they vanished, he imagined them becoming stars, or perhaps becoming wishes that did not need to be spoken aloud. Time in the clearing moved differently. It did not march. It drifted. It settled. It curled up beside the fire like a sleepy animal. Rowan's thoughts slowed until they were less like sentences and more like gentle impressions. At some point, the creature stood and padded to the edge of the clearing, then paused. It looked back once, as if to say that it would return, or that it was simply making a small round of the forest. Then it disappeared between the pine trunks, blending into shadow and needle green. Rowan remained breathing slowly, feeling the warmth of the fire on his face. He watched the flames lower and rise in a steady rhythm. He listened to the forest's lullaby. He let his hands rest in his lap, palms warm, fingers loose. The sky above seemed even wider now. Stars hung quietly. The moon, if it was there, hid behind branches, offering only a pale glow that softened the night further. Rowan drank the last of the warm, herb-scented water and set the cup aside. He lay down on his blanket near the fire, angled so the warmth reached him without being too close. The ground beneath him was soft. The pine needles cradled his body gently. He pulled his blanket up and felt it settle across him like a calm promise. The fire's glow flickered across his eyelids. Even with eyes closed, he could sense its presence. Warm, steady, alive. He listened again, the crackle of embers, the sigh of branches, the stream's endless whisper. These sounds were a cradle for the mind, a slow rocking that made thoughts dissolve. Rowan's breathing matched the forest. Inhale like wind drawing through needles. Exhale like smoke rising into the stars. Each breath became a little longer, a little softer. As he rested, the forest seemed to lean in, not to watch, but to shelter. Pine branches above shifted slightly, as if adjusting a blanket. The air remained clear and cool, warmed at the edges by firelight. The creature returned as quietly as it had left. It It sat near the fire again, its eyes reflecting the last bright flames. It did not approach Rowan, but its presence was comforting, like a guardian that required no thanks. It watched the fire with the calm focus of something that understood slow time, seasonal time, the patient turning of the world. The campfire continued to burn, and as it did, it seemed to tell a story without words, a story of trees growing tall and strong, of needles falling and becoming soil, of fallen branches becoming warmth, of the forest taking what it had, then offering it back in a gentler form. Rowan drifted towards sleep in small steps. His thoughts became less distinct. The shape of the day faded behind him, like a path covered by fresh snow, softened until it no longer mattered which direction it had gone. The fire lowered again, the flames shrinking into a deeper bed of glowing coals. The light became steadier, less flickering, more like a quiet ember lamp. Shadows settled into place and stopped moving so much. The clearing became still. In that stillness, Rowan felt the deepest comfort. The world was safe enough to let go. The pines stood, the stars held their places. The fire glowed on, a small sun on the forest floor. And as Rowan's breathing slowed further, the forest seemed to breathe with him. Inhale, the trees drawing in cool night air. Exhale, the trees releasing a soft whisper of scent and calm. The creature's eyes blinked slowly. It curled its tail around itself and became a compact, peaceful shape beside the coals. The campfire glow painted its outline in warm orange, then dimmed to a softer amber. Everything in the clearing moved toward rest. The embers pulsed gently like a heartbeat that did not need attention. The stream continued its quiet song. The wind softened until it was barely there, only a faint touch high in the branches. Rowan's body grew heavy in the best way, the kind of heaviness that means you are supported. His shoulders sank, his hands relaxed, his face smoothed. He was no longer traveling anywhere. He had arrived at stillness. The forest held him, the way pine needles hold footsteps, absorbing them into softness. The campfire glow became a quiet comfort at the edge of awareness, like a warm light left on in another room. It did not demand he watch it. It simply existed, steady and reassuring. The stars above seemed to shimmer more slowly. The sky felt like a vast, dark lake, and the clearing was a small, warm shore. Rowan drifted deeper. Breath by breath, thought by thought, he sank into a gentle darkness that was not empty but full of peace, full of pine scent, full of ember warmth, full of the steady presence of trees that had stood through countless nights and would stand through countless more. The world did not need him to stay awake. So he let go. The coals glowed softly. The pines whispered barely at all now. The creature rested, still as a carved charm, safe beside the dying warmth. And in that sheltered clearing, under a ceiling of needles and stars, Rowan slipped into sleep as naturally as a leaf floating down to earth. The sentences of the mind grew shorter, then softer, then quieter. The warmth remained. The forest remained. The glow remained, a gentle ember in the dark. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.